So next, lesson 4, HTML forms. So we'll build a registration form. You can use HTML forms to collect information from people who visit your web page. So in this course, you'll learn HTML forms by building a sign-up page. You learn how to control what types of data people can type into your form, and some CSS tools for styling your page. Start the project. This is 65 steps. This is what it would look like. So first step is the doc type declaration. Doc type HTML. Then next we'll add an HTML element and closing HTML tag. Next add opening and closing head and body tags. Head, body, add a title and meta head and meta title, project registration form. Title. And then meta is charset tf-8. Link element for the style sheet, I guess. Round equals style sheet and href styles.css. Within the body, provide a heading context for the content by adding h1 registration form. Next, below the heading, use the following text with a paragraph element to encourage users to register. Paragraph. Copy this. Okay. VH stands for viewport height and is equal to 1% of the height of the viewport. This makes it relative to the viewport height. It's time to spruce the project with some CSS. Begin by giving the body width of 100% and the height 100 VH. Get rid of the horizontal scroll bar. This one. Get rid of the horizontal scroll bar by setting the body margin to 0. Okay. So that's better. Make the background easy on the eyes, changing the body background dash color to hashtag 1, B1, B3, 2. And then the color, change it to F5, F6, F7. Okay. Suggested by title, you're creating a form, so after the P element, insert a form. Form with an action attribute, targeting this. I think we need to close the form. Okay. Method attribute specifies how to send form data to the URL specified in the action attribute. Form data can be sent via get request as URL parameters with method equals get, or via post request. Method post to set the method attribute. Send your form data via post request. method equals post. As the form will have three distinct sections and three field set elements within the form element. Field set, field set. Okay, so first field set will hold the name, email, and password fields. So start by adding 4 label elements to the first field set. Label. 4 labels. Enter the following texted label elements for the first label, and then second label. Enter your email and create a password. Alright, so next, rem unit stands for root em and is relative to the font size of the HTML element. As label elements are inline by default, they are displayed side by side on the same line, making their text hard to read. So make them appear in separate lines, add display block to the label element, and add a margin of 0.5 rem 0 to separate them. The label element, so we'll put label display equals block. Okay, so that happened. Margin of 0.5 rem 0. Okay. Nest an input element within each label. So here, be sure to add the input label after the label text and include a space after the colon. So here, put input. So put another input here, just put space there. Next lesson, okay, next. Follow accessibility best practices. Link the input elements and label elements together using the for attribute. So we'll put label for equals first dash name, then for last dash name, for email, for new password. ID attributes. Your first input element should have an ID of first name. ID equals first name dash name. Next input ID equals last dash name equals email equals new dash password. Okay, perfect. Specifying the type attribute of a form element is important for the browser to know what kind of data it should expect. If type is not specified, browser will default to text, so give the two input elements a type attribute of text. Input type equals text. Second one, input type equals text. Next, third attribute is email and fourth is password. Type equals email and then password is type equals password. only allows emails with an @ and dot in the domain. Password type obscures the input, warns if the site does not use HTTPS. First input element with the type submit is automatically set to submit its nearest parent form element. To handle the form submission after the last field set element and add an input field set. After the last field set, add an input element with the type submit and value attribute set to submit. There's a button here. At this point, you should be able to submit the form. However, you might notice not much happens. So to make the form more interactive, add the required attribute to the input elements in the first field set. So we'll put here required required input required. Try to submit the form without filling the required fields. You will see an error message. Okay, please fill out this field. Okay. Certain type attribute values come with built-in form validations. For example, type email requires that the value be a valid email. Add custom validation to the password input element by adding a min length input is here. Min dash length plus 8. Min length attribute. So you should give the password input a min length attribute. Input not the email, it should be the password. With type equals password, you can use the pattern attribute to define a regular expression that the password must match to be considered valid. So pattern attribute required input match. It's a pattern. Put it here. Pattern equals this. The above is a regular expression which matches 8 or more lowercase digits for digits 0 to 5. Then remove the min length attribute and try it out. Okay. Let's go to the next part of the registration form. This will ask type of account the user is opening, adding 2 label elements. Users will be allowed to choose either a personal or business. To do this, within each of the first 2 label elements, add one input element. Type radio. Input type equals radio. Let's add one here. Oh, within each, so it should be inside. Within each corresponding label element, add immediately after the input element, add the space and add the following text. You only want one radio input to be selectable at a time. However, the form does not know the radio inputs are related. So to relate them, give the same name attribute to the value of account type. So now I can select both. Okay. Value equals account dash type. Put that here. And name equals account dash type. Alright. Currently, users can submit the form without checking the radio inputs, although you previously used the required attribute to indicate that an input is required. It won't work in this case because adding required to both inputs will convey the wrong information to users. To solve this, you can provide context of what is needed by adding a legend element with the text account type required before the label elements within the second field set. Add the checked attribute to the personal input to ensure the form submitted with. Okay, so adding a legend element. So legend account type required. Um, Legend, and then check. I'll put checked here, so it's automatically checked. Yes. Allow accessibility practices by linking the input elements and label elements in the second field set. Use personal account as values for the respective ID attributes. So put for equals personal dash account. This is for business dash account, and then ID in the input personal dash account D equals business dash account. Nice. You need to confirm that the user has read the terms and conditions, so add a label element inside the newly created label element. Add a label element. Okay, so inside the newly created label element, add an input element and set the type attribute to checkbox. Make this element required, so users cannot sign up without agreeing. An ID for, and then ID equals terms and conditions. We'll put the same, we'll link them together for terms and conditions. Add the text I accept the terms and conditions immediately after the input. Then link the text terms and conditions to the following location. Mm, terms and conditions. So it would be an anchor tag, href, and then wrap it in an anchor tag. Okay. Moving on to the final field set, what if you wanted to allow a user to upload a profile picture? Input file type equals file. Um, Add a label with the text. Put label upload a profile picture. Mm, you should add a label with the text of the profile picture. Okay. Add another label with the after the first with the text. Input your age, years. Add nest and input to the type of number. Input type equals number. Add a min attribute to the input with the value of 13 because users under the age of 13 should not register. Max equals 120. Min equals 13. Max equals 120. Someone tries to submit the form of the values outside. Range warning will appear. 155. First name, last name, .com, password must be less than or equal to 120. Okay. Adding a drop down to the form is easy with a select element. The select element is a container for a group of option elements, and the option element acts as a label for each drop down option. Both elements require closing tags, so I'll start by adding a select element below the two label elements. Select nest 5 option elements within the select elements. So option put 5 option elements, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nest the select element with its option elements within the label element. Nest with the label element text. How did you hear about us? Then nested in the label. Text should come before the select element. Okay. this. The drop-down options are currently empty. To give them content, add the following text to the option element. So select Freecode Camp News, Freecode Camp YouTube channel, Freecode Camp Forum, and other. Submitting the form with an option selected would not send a value to the server. As such, each option needs to be given a value attribute at which the text content of the option would be submitted to the server. Give the first option a value of uh, just that, and then value attributes from 1 to 4. Value equals 1, value equals 2, value equals 3, last value equals 4. The text area element acts like an input element of type text, but comes with the added benefit of being able to receive multi-text line initial number of rows and columns, so users will be able to register with a bio. Add a label with the text provide the bio at the end of the field set. So here, on label, provide a bio plus the label. Add the text area inside the label element. Um, Text area. Link the applicable form elements and their label elements together. Use profile picture, age, referrer, and bio as values for their respective attributes. Um, Profile picture. So here is for profile dash picture input ID equals profile dash picture H. So that would be here for H input ID equals H referrer. This label for referrer select ID equals referrer bio for equals bio text area ID equals bio. So for the text area appears too small, give it the initial size. You can add rows and calls attributes. 3 rows and 30 columns. Text area rows equals 3. Call calls 30. Okay, so it got bigger. Give campers an idea of what to put in their bio. The placeholder attribute is used. Placeholder accepts a text value which is displayed until the user starts typing. Give a text area a placeholder. Placeholder. I like coding on the beach. With form submissions, it's useful and good practice to provide each submittable element with a name attribute. This attribute is used to identify the element in the form submission. You Except for the two radio inputs, would you have which of our name give each submittable element a unique name attribute of your choosing? Um, Name here. Name equals first dash name. This one name equals last dash name. Put name equals email equals password equals profile dash picture h equals referrer equals bio equals stamps. Nice. The registration spin is signature font dash family Tahoma size to 16px. Center the H1 and P elements, so H1P margin 1 EM auto text dash align center. Center the form element by giving it a margin. So margin equals 0 auto. So max width 400px and then min width 300px. In between that range, allow it to have a width of 60 width 60 width. Okay. During development, it is useful to see the fields at default borders. However, they make the content appear too separated, so remove the border and add field set Remove the border. Border 0. Okay. Padding. To rem 0. Yes. Shooting the padding from the left and right. Give the field set elements a bit of separation. Select them. Give them a border bottom. Border dash bottom. 3px solid 3b 4f. Border of the last field set element looks a little out of place. This one. You can select the last element of a specific type using the last of type CSS class like this. So create a new selector, create the last field set last of dash type border dash bottom none. Okay. Nicer to have the label text appear above the form element. Select all input text area. Select elements and make them take up the full width of their parent element. So width 100%. Okay. Margin of margin top of the selected elements. That's 10px. Set the other margins to 0, 0, 0, 0. Nice. For the second field set, you want the input and label text to appear on the same line. Start by giving the inputs put elements in the second field set a class of inline. Input class equals inline. Select only the .inline elements. Width of unset. So remove the earlier rule, which will set all the inputs to width 100%. Next, add some space between the inline elements and the label text by giving it a right margin of. Here we'll put margin 0 top, margin 0.5 rem for right, and 0, 0. Should give the inline elements margin right. Okay. Margin 0, 5 em 0, 0. Yes. If you look close enough, you will notice the inline elements are too high on the line. So combat this. Set the vertical line to middle. Call dash align. Okay. Alright, next. To make the input and text area elements blend in with the background theme, set their background color to input, select the input, select the text area, or no, just input and text area. Background dash color set to 0823. Then give them a border 1px solid color 00823. Okay. If you type in the input or text area elements, you will not be able to see the text. Also, the height is too small to be easy to use. So fix this by setting the color to FF. It's white. Setting their min dash height to 2m. So select element to remain with a white background, but not now it is not getting the same min height as the input and text area elements. Move the min height property and the value so that all three element types min height here to here. To style the submit button, you can use an attribute selector which selects an element based on the given attribute value. So here is an example. And input name equals password. The web selects input elements with the name attribute value of password. So now use attribute selector to style the submit button with style the submit button. Submit is input type equals submit. Input type equals submit. Display block. Display block with 60%. Left of its edge paired. Center the form. I centered the form by margin 0 auto. Margin 0 auto. Okay. To make the submit button look more in line with the rest of the form, give it the same height as the other fields. 2m. 2em. Font dash size equals 1.1 rem. Okay. Make the submit button more distinct. Give it a background dash color 3b3b4f. The border dash color white. Okay. Lastly, for the submit button, you want to separate it from the field set above and adjust its width to never be below 300 px. So change the margin property to include 1M on the top and bottom. Leaving the right bar yourself to auto set the width at this drive above 300px. Never be below 300px. Oh, I think that's min width. Px. No, width. You should not change the width property. Use the min width property. Okay, let's reset. Margin property 1em. Set the width of min dash width 300px. Should not change the width property. I didn't use the min width property. Should I just remove this? You should not change the width property. You want to separate it from the field set above and adjust width to never be below 300px. So min width. Okay, it's just wrong spelling. Most browsers inject their own default CS properties and values for different elements. So if you look closely, you might be able to notice the file input. This one. Smaller than other text input elements. By default, a padding of 1 to 2px is given. 1px, 2px is given to input elements. You can type in using our attribute selector. Style the input with the type of file. Input type equals file. The same padding as other input elements. That's padding 1px, 2px. Okay. Like this. Speaking of padding, the submit button is sitting at the bottom of the form element. Add 2em padding only to the bottom of the form. So padding 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 2em 0. There you go. Make the input for the terms and conditions inline by adding the appropriate class in the HTML. This one. Class equals inline. 65 lastly, change the text color of the terms and conditions link element 2. That's a link, so that's a color df df ito. Should give am ito. Okay, it's all done. We'll just check the next lesson. So we're done with the form. And next would be the certification project. Okay, we'll do that next.